If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Gloved Fist. My name is Frank Lotierzo, part-time writer, full-time observer, although, Jack, I keep saying that, and it's stretching it a little bit lately. Joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association, Jack Hirsch. Jack, we have a plethora of things to talk about, but I have to get this off my chest. USA. I was so into the hockey yesterday, and when the girls won the other night, and then the men's team yesterday, I'll tell you what, that's one of the best thrills I've had watching sports since the Miracle on Ice 46 years ago.
Well, I'm going to tell you, both teams were invited to the White House, and only the men's one is going. But could you imagine if Money Mayweather beats Pacquiao? Is he going to get an invitation to the White House?
Well, he's a capitalist like Trump, so he probably will. But I can celebrate.
No political views. I'm talking about the White House. I'm not.
That's not a I'm just saying a capitalist. That's not a political view. But I don't know why he would. But anyhow, I don't want to ruin the Mayweather with the hockey team. That was great. The game was great. Like baseball, Jack, if you have a hot pitcher, you're good. And when you have a hot goalie, your money. And that was the case yesterday because that Canadian team, they kind of outplayed the American team, but that goalie for the U.S. was off the hook.
Yeah, how often do we see that in boxing, Frank? That you bring up a good point in a sense.
I always bring up good points, Jack. You just never acknowledge them.
Canadians outplayed the USA, but the USA found a way to win. How often does one fighter outfight another fighter, but the one that got outfought finds a way to legitimately win? Legitimately, not because of bad judging, not because of gift decisions. Legitimately finds a way to overcome his opponent.
It's not often. You have to think, guys that were behind and won by a knockout late in the fight. You can't say Leonard Hearns because that fight was competitive. What's a fight that wasn't competitive that went late and ended in a knockout? Weaver Tate, maybe?
Yeah, well, usually it's come from behind knockouts, but we're talking Mayweather before. That's the big news that came in September.
Can you believe it?
Quite a while. That's going to be 7 months away, and it's going to be on Netflix. Okay, so if you're a subscriber to Netflix, as many people are, you're not going to have to pay an extra charge. And look, Mayweather-Pacquiao, I understand it's about entertainment, but this is a little different from Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. It's different in this sense. The stakes are higher. The stakes are higher, especially for Floyd Mayweather, more so than Manny Pacquiao, because Mayweather has that 50-0 record. And this isn't an exhibition because Netflix isn't paying all this money and Mayweather's not making all this money to fight an exhibition against Manny Pacquiao. So in other words, Mayweather is having an so-called exhibition against Mike Tyson first. Mayweather is better off professionally to get knocked out by Tyson but beat Pacquiao because we wouldn't count the Tyson thing. Even though it would be an old guy, it would be a heavyweight, it wouldn't go on his record.
And that's why the Tyson fiasco is exactly that, because there's too much money to blow if Tyson hurts Mayweather or makes him look bad. That's why that's going to be a slap and kiss contest. So to me, that loses its luster there. And then as far as Mayweather and Pacquiao, Jack, tomorrow Floyd Mayweather is going to be 49 years old. Pacquiao turned 47, I think, in July. I'm sorry. Even if Mayweather loses, as much as I want him to lose, what does he really lose? He's going to say, well, okay, Pacquiao beat me at 49, but he didn't beat me when we were both close to at the top of our game. And the funny thing is, the first fight was 5 years too late, and now they're fighting again 11 years later. That's crazy.
Well, Floyd is not doing it for ego because he wants to be on top because he misses the limelight, even though he does miss the limelight because he's that type of guy. He has money problems flat out. Anyone who knows the way Floyd operates knows he would not risk his unbeaten record for anything unless he was all tapped out. This is the only reason he's coming back because of financial difficulty. He's going to get a huge pile of money, okay? Enough to last him the rest of his life and live
Well, we thought that before, Jack.
right and live lavishly if he's smarter this time around. But some guys aren't smart enough to handle it. As many chances as you give them. You love to call Sugar Ray Robinson the greatest fighter of all time, and he very well might be. But look at the way Ray went through money. I mean, just look at that. And Floyd seems to be the same way outside the ring. But I'm going to tell you, the more implications. Hypothetically, let's say Pacquiao wins a split decision over Mayweather. Guess what? They might have a third fight. Now, if it's controversial, that's a big pile of money. And let's say Mayweather decides to say the heck with the unbeaten record, because that's always possible. It's always possible. You get older, you figure who gives it done. Can you imagine he gets a decision over Pacquiao, as close as it could be, and he invites Terence Crawford to make a return to the ring, figuring I could get 300-400 million to fight Crawford. He'll get 100 million, and let's do it. Who cares if he beats me at this point?
Jack, sometimes you say things and you just overload me sensory wise, okay? Let me just say this before we go out about Mayweather fighting Crawford or whatever he's going to do. Brian, mark this tape down. There is no way that we will see Floyd Mayweather get beat in an exhibition or a fight. He will still retire undefeated. He will use that as his cachet to build off of. He will not fight or go into the ring against anyone where the circumstances are not controlled, and he will win. If he agrees to fight Pacquiao, which supposedly has already been done, he's going to win that fight. I don't care what anybody says. He has the style. They're both old men, and Jack Mayweather wouldn't take it if he thought he could lose.
No, this is different this time around. Mayweather is not in a position to pick his spots beyond Pacquiao. The only other fighter who's going to make him this ridiculous fortune of money would have been Terence Crawford, who he would have had virtually no chance of beating at this stage. So he wasn't about to fight Terence Crawford. Let me retract what I said a moment ago. The unbeaten record does mean a lot. It means virtually everything to Mayweather, be outside of the money situation. You know, obviously, if there's a trade-off, you have to be, I don't want to say broke, but your lifestyle is no longer lavish, but you're protecting your unbeaten record, or you could come back to the ring for the fortune of money. He's electing to go for the money, and I don't blame him. That's his own value thing. But there was no one out there besides Pacquiao that would be a winnable fight or could draw the type of money Manny and him would, because their names are linked together, kind of like Ali's and Frazier's were linked together.
Jack, you just said a lot, and you don't even realize that you made my point for me. You just said that after this fight, Floyd has no control over his career. He can't pick his spots. This is the one time he can. And Jack, that's exactly why it's a guarantee that he's going to win, because he knows that. And he knows if he loses this fight and he comes out with an L, his whole stock and trade is off the table. So in order for him to pivot off the next fight, he's going to fight somebody he can win, and he must feel Pacquiao's that guy. So after he beats Pacquiao, whether it's by a 1-point decision or whatever, he'll still be undefeated. He'll still have the undefeated record to trade off of, and he knows he can't cash it out on this one fight because it will be the end of the story. He's not looking just for this one fight. So therefore, if he signed to fight Usyk, I would pick Mayweather. I will never pick Mayweather against him as long as his name's on the dotted line. And as you said, he knows he cannot pick his spots if he's not undefeated. That's why he's taking this fight so he can continue to pick his spots.
You're talking like the scenario is fixed with the judges and it's all scripted. That's how you're talking now.
No, Jack, wait a second. Wait. We just had a fight this past weekend. Garcia against Barrios. Didn't I say, forget everything. The table is set for Garcia to win. He's fighting a guy with a title who's beatable, who cannot knock him out, and he knows all he has to do is show up, be in shape, and live up to his part of the bargain. That's where boxing is fixed. Who fights who and when they fight each other. And what happened, Jack? Garcia showed he's the more skilled guy. He won the fight pretty much convincingly. It's the same thing. I'm not saying that it's the WWE, but I'm saying when and at the time they fight and who they fight, that can be scripted. And with Floyd, he has a black belt in doing that.
Yeah, but Floyd has been off so long. Pacquiao,
and he's fighting another guy, Jack, who's been off just as long almost.
But Pacquiao had to fight with Barrios, which was, and Barrios isn't much.
Okay, he had the one comeback fight.
Well, and he didn't look bad. He didn't look bad in that fight. He looked like he had something. He was hittable, but he threw a lot of punches. And the first fight, Mayweather-Pacquiao, was a clear win for Mayweather, but it wasn't lopsided. It was something like an 8-4.
But that's Mayweather. Every fight of his is 8-4, Jack.
Make an argument for 9-3 if you want. Some people thought 7-5. Let's call it a clear 8-4, which is
8-4. I had it.
Yeah. Okay. And keep this in mind. You think about powers that be. What's better for business? It would actually maybe be better for business that Manny squeaks out a controversial decision and they have a rubber match, because Pacquiao's name has a lot of pull. It really does. The name Pacquiao does have a lot of pull. Mayweather's has more pull. But Pacquiao,
well, let me ask you this, Jack. If Mayweather wins a 1-point split decision, do you really think they couldn't fight a second time? And you really think Pacquiao wouldn't take it? Pacquiao will agree to fight Mayweather on his deathbed. That'll never go away.
I'm going to tell you, if it plays out the way you say it's going to play out, I could see Mayweather and Jake Paul, having their so-called exhibition. Mayweather wouldn't allow it to be on the record or whatever, but I could see that scenario happening.
But Jack, think about what has happened to this sport. What has happened to this sport that I used to love? I no longer love it like I did. We're talking about a 47 and a 49-year-old guy fighting, and then you're talking, and then we're talking about maybe he fights a YouTube guy who has become a legitimate boxer, but still a YouTube sensation after that, who's 50 pounds bigger than him. What happened to real boxing?
It's not what it was. And Ryan Garcia is the best example of that. He had a fight last Saturday. That was considered a high-profile pay-per-view event. People were excited. Everyone's raving about Ryan Garcia. Oh, Ryan Garcia looks so good. Look at that's the first fight Garcia's won in ages. The fight before that, he lost 9 out of 10 rounds to Raleigh Romero and losing the decision. It wasn't even close. Raleigh Romero's not an elite fighter. He's not world class. He's no more than a decent fighter, yet he beat Garcia handily. The fight before that, Garcia was a PED cheat. He got busted. He got suspended a year. So based on losing lopsided to Romero, coming off the suspension in the fight with Haney, where the win was taken away from him and made a no contest, he was given a WBC title fight. You want to know what?
That's my point, Jack. That's my whole point. The whole point is that it was set up because Ryan Garcia is a quasi-star, and he's better for business than Barrios is. So he fought a guy for a belt, who, like him, is most known and best known for either losing or fighting to a draw against the best opponents they fought. So what happened? You had two guys, both known for losing the biggest fights of their career. They meet for a title, and what happened? The guy that's younger, who's a bigger star and more gifted, won the fight. So they're making Garcia out like a big deal, and he's going to, Jack, he's going to act like he invented boxing and his career's revised and all, like he calls it shots in the welterweight division. And I have no interest in Garcia. You know what, Garcia? You think you're tough. You think you're all that. You don't have to pick on Terrence Crawford. He's not coming back. You know what? Fight Boots Ennis. Then we'll see how good you are.
Yeah,
I'm sick of these fights that everybody, it's so scripted, Jack. You know who's going to win.
that's why you and I really look forward to a Virgil Ortiz Boots in its fight, because they're real fighters who want to get into a real
At the
fight
top of their game.
at the top of their game. I mean, listen, give Teofimo Lopez a lot of credit. He took on Shakur Stevenson, and give Stevenson all the credit. Stevenson will take on anyone.
I give him credit for that. He fought Lomachenko when nobody was going near him. He fought Josh Taylor when he was still on top. Somewhat.
And Shakur Stevenson is the guy who might suffer, despite what Garcia's saying. He doesn't want any part of Stevenson as people with De La Hoya. I mean, they're probably thinking, well, it's a fight that we might be able to win. But there's so much uncertainty that they would have, and Mike is stretching it because Ryan Garcia is not beating Shakur Stevenson. So for all this big talk, so what's going to happen? Garcia is going to get out of the Stevenson fight this way. He's going to demand more money. And if Stevenson somehow says, okay, you could have the 60-40 split because my 40% will be more than I can make elsewhere.
He won't take it.
Garcia's then going to make it 70-30, something dumb. You know?
I'll make another prediction, Jack. Ryan Garcia will make at least 2 title defenses.
We froze Fred.
Off of that, you know, and so he's going to fight a couple non-entities for the title, and that'll be it. But you know what, Jack? You know who the biggest loser is? Think about this. We're talking about Garcia. Garcia is the biggest loser. Floyd Mayweather coming back is the worst thing that can hurt him, because if Floyd wasn't coming back, you know who we'd see next? Garcia and Pacquiao.
I don't think Pacquiao, I'm not that sure he would take the fight. Maybe he would have. Okay, but
ton of money, Jack, and it's a title.
Garcia would beat Pacquiao.
Absolutely.
Pacquiao's career. I think we're going to see Garcia in with Devin Haney. They're going to run it back again. It got a lot of publicity the first fight. It's a fight that Garcia could maybe legitimately win. And I'm going to tell you, every time Garcia fights and he looks really good, there's going to be a certain suspicion now because of his history. That's just the way it is. I mean, people are going to be suspicious because he looked so bad against Rally Romero coming off his suspension, and he looked better physically in this last match. Put it that way, and I'm assuming he was clean. I'm not saying I'm assuming
right, and we'll wait to see what happens. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and there is doubt. We'll give him the benefit. You know, Jack, for about 50 years, I've had this saying. I'm not a Bruce Springsteen fan. It has nothing to do with his politics. I don't like his music, and I've always said that I wouldn't go see Bruce Springsteen play if he came to my backyard and all I had to do was move the curtain. I'm at that point now with a few fighters, and Garcia and Mayweather. Mayweather's been on that list, and and Garcia has now entered it.
Well, Mayweather fight, like I said, it's on Netflix. If you have Netflix,
right? I have Netflix,
and I think Mayweather Pacquiao, they treat it a little different. They treat it kind of like a Super Bowl, even though guys like you and I are into the game itself first and foremost, and only half the people watching the game, it seems, like the party. It's an event, it's an entertainment event. Oh, watch the commercials, get good food. They're not as intensely into the game. I think Mayweather Pacquiao, people are going to get together in the social settings and kind of watch it that way. It's not like a true fight. It's not like Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. Now that's a fight fans fight. Now when they fought, not like the
Jack, you know what it's like though? To me, it's like the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl in 2015. The Patriots won in 2014. Would anybody have any interest in seeing the 15 Broncos play the 14 Patriots today? I don't think so.
No, but wait. Flag football is coming to the Olympics. A lot of people are going to tune in to see Tom Brady.
I didn't even realize that, Jack. That's a fact.
Well, yeah, so just consider that. And listen, you're going to be tuning in to see Tom Brady. And he might throw TDs, and you might think, Tom might still be able to play in this league.
No, Jack, only if I go to sleep tonight and hear you in my ear while I think about that.
We had some other news that happened, soap opera stuff. It was shocking. Conor Benn supposedly left Eddie Hearn to sign with Dana White Super Boxing. Why I say supposedly? It's a one-fight deal. So I'm a little confused. If all Dana White signed him for was one fight, guaranteed $15 million, and Conor Benn can leave him after that one fight,
why wouldn't you do it?
Why would he? Well, Eddie Hearn, and I blame Eddie Hearn for this in large part. Okay, Eddie Hearn has been good for boxing and bad for boxing. In this sense, Conor Benn was another one who was a drug cheat, got suspended. Okay, Eddie Hearn took his side completely, kept vouching for his innocence. He made Conor Benn out to be a victim in all this. And he stood by Conor Benn's side, got him certain fights, got him to appear in the United States. And Eddie Hearn was even trying to circumvent certain rulings at the time, too. He showed him extraordinary loyalty to Conor Benn. So now Conor Benn gets the offer from Super Boxing. Not only takes it, he didn't even speak to Eddie Hearn. He refused to take his call. Well, and what I don't like about Eddie Hearn is this. He uses the dirtiest word in all of boxing, and he always uses it all the time. Undisputed. That's what we keep hearing. Undisputed. Meaning that if a guy is a legitimate world champion and he gets stripped by a sanctioning body, Eddie Hearn gives that full credibility. And he calls the other guy a world champion who picks up a belt. That's what's hurting boxing to a large extent.
Oh, Jack, that's a long list. As far as Eddie Hearn goes, I agree with you. He'll say whatever. He's a chameleon. Whatever the moment calls for, he'll say. As far as Conor Benn, if I was in that situation, I would do the same thing. And look, whether we like it or not, Jack, Dana White is going to unruffle some feathers in this sport because he's compared to most of these guys. He's a little bit younger. He's a kind of a progressive thinking guy. He can probably relate to these guys better. And if he comes in waving the cash, it's like that's what it's all about. And as we've seen, it looks like now, the way things are going, that Paramount and Netflix are the new HBO and Showtime.
Well, I think...
And DAZN.
I might be wrong on this, but I think with Dana White's personality, I mean, he strikes me as the type of guy who's very competitive. It's not just about the money. He and Oscar De La Hoya have been going back and forth. He hates De La Hoya. I could see the signing of Conor Benn for him to have an opponent to lure Ryan Garcia into a fight with Conor Benn and get Ryan Garcia maybe to leave Golden Boy. I mean, I could see that scenario perhaps unfolding. Maybe not, but I know him and Oscar, a lot of harsh words. And listen, Dana White's doing nothing illegal. And you could argue he's doing nothing wrong at all. You could make that argument. Look, Conor Benn did not have a contract with Eddie Hearn. And Eddie Hearn says, I blame myself because I trusted him, this and that. So what Dana White was doing was perfectly legal. He didn't go after a guy on the contract. So, kudos to Dana White if he can get a guy away, a high profile guy, sign him. He did it. But where's Conor Benn's loyalty? Conor Ben acted like a complete lowlife because Eddie Hearn was tremendously loyal to Conor Ben. He turned him pro from the beginning, developed him, got him all the right fights, stuck by his side when he had, the substance abuse issues. And now Conor Ben doesn't even give him the courtesy of a discussion, doesn't even speak to him about it. The attorney sends a letter to Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn wanted to speak to Conor Ben and was shut off when it was told he couldn't.
Well, that just tells you, Jack, he's afraid to speak to Eddie because he's afraid maybe Eddie will change his mind. He'll feel guilty. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, if there's any other backstory that we don't know about. But when you do it like that, that means there's something that you fear in facing Hearn. And that's
what I would do if I were in that situation that Conor Ben was in. And I thought,
I don't know why I froze.
If I'm a fighter and someone has developed me, they're my partner, they've stuck with me the whole time, and I get a big, big offer to leave them, I'm going to be sure that they're taken care of. If Conor Ben is getting $15 million, he should think to himself, okay, I'm going to sit down with Eddie Hearn. I'm going to work it out where he gets a slice, maybe a couple of million of that, because this is the guy who developed me and got me there. And he'd sit down with Eddie, say, Eddie, let's work something out. I want you to get compensated. It's one fight. It's big money. I'll give him $1 million or something. This is what you're getting here, because you're not going to be able to match this. So I'm going to
right. You don't have to do anything but just get up that day.
Yeah, it's just the thought. But the lack of communication. Look, sometimes fighters leave for their own betterment, and I get it all, especially fighters who've had a trainer their whole career and the relationship has gone stale. I kind of remember, like, one of our favorite people, Jerry Cooney. He left Victor Valley, his longtime trainer. He handled it the wrong way, and Valley didn't like it because they were extremely close, and he did it in a phone call rather than sit down, talk to the guy, the trainer. Cooney was entitled to leave his train at any point. If you feel you're better off with someone else, you kind of do it in a way.
But Jack, what does that? You know what that tells me? That tells me that the relationship wasn't as good as maybe we thought or whatever. Because when you go through the wars with somebody like that, and you can't sit down with them and present what the issue is and what's going on and what the stumbling block, if you can't do that, then there's a communication gap and the relationship wasn't as strong as you thought. I'm sure that happens in a lot of marriages and people when they get divorced. But that's what that tells me. If Jerry couldn't sit down with Victor, there was another issue outside of that. And the same thing with Conor and Eddie.
Sometimes you're too ashamed to sit down. You feel too uncomfortable and you take the easy way out, which is the wrong way of doing it. Okay.
I agree, Jack. But if I feel that close to somebody, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable.
Okay, but yeah, well, perhaps, but no, and whether they have your best interest at heart, if they really care about you, chances are they'll let you walk. They'll let you do what's best if they really care. But if you invested a lot in them, you're entitled to get something back in return.
I agree.
Too.
It's just hard, Jack, because people think they're entitled. And that's why they say you shouldn't do business with friends and family. My father had a business. My relatives thought whenever he did work for them that he was making a lot of money and he was doing it at cost and not charging them labor. So he could not make them happy. They thought he was making a killing and here he's making nothing. And then sometimes there were sour grapes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you take a case of a relationship that you thought was as strong as could be, Bernard Hopkins and Bowie Fischer. Bernard Hopkins moved on. Sometimes there's a case that the fighter's making the big money and he doesn't want to pay that much out. And
we saw that with Laird and Dundee.
No, but in all honesty, well, Dundee had a contract that he gave up. and Leonard should have paid him more. For the Hagler fight, Dundee did away with his contract.
Right.
Okay.
He took a flat fee.
And he was entitled to 15%, and they gave him 1.3%. And my trainer said, well, it's more than he ever made for another fight. But I will say this, all these trainers, managers, and all this, not all of them, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of them, I meant. You take a case of Freddie Roach with Manny Pacquiao. We're talking about it before. Now, if Manny didn't use Freddie Roach, broke off with him, Manny would probably be made out to be the villain. But you want to know something? When Manny was a champion, a world champion, Freddie left him for the night to work with Oscar De La Hoya, who was fighting like the same night. Okay? De La Hoya was fighting Steve Forbes. I forgot who Pacquiao was fighting, because it was a great opportunity for Freddie Roach. I could be linked on with De La Hoya. De La Hoya was a much bigger superstar than Pacquiao at that time. So you get to work. I get to work with Manny Pacquiao. To me, I didn't like it. You're Manny's trainer. He's well established. You don't leave him. There's always an excuse. They'll always go where the glamour is. All the guys, just about. Yeah, unless it's someone like a Teddy Atlas.
Glamour and money.
And on principle. But even Gil Clancy, when Smokin' Joe fought Jerry Quarry in their second fight, June 17th, 1974, Clancy was Quarry's trainer. But that same night in Albuquerque, Clancy's fighter, Jorge Ahumada, was fighting.
Fought Foster.
Ahumada was with Clancy before Quarry was, but of course Quarry's the bigger name ticket. But Clancy's reason was, well, Jerry's maybe not, it needs me more mentally than Ahumada, because Ahumada's pretty strong mentally. He could, handle the situation there. Whatever the reason, but it goes on all the time.
Did I ever tell you the story that Gil Clancy told me about when George Foreman fought Ron Lyle when he was training him?
No.
About how Foreman tried to get him to take less money?
You may have. I don't remember. Tell me again.
It was Foreman is fighting Lyle, and the night before the fight, Foreman called Clancy up and said, look, Gil, he goes, Don King hit me with this, and I'm not going to have any money left in the budget to pay you. And Clancy said, okay. He goes, well, look, we've done everything fine, and you know what to do tomorrow when you fight Ron. And Foreman goes, you mean you're not going to be here? He says, no. He goes, I'm going to get a red eye out of Vegas, and I'll go home and watch the fight with my son. Foreman called him an hour later and found the money.
Yeah.
He was trying to see if Clancy would work for nothing, according to Gil.
There was, I like Gil Clancy. He was a really good guy. There's a story about him in Russell Peltz's book, $30 in a Cut Eye. What happened, Clancy's fighter, Tom Bethea, was fighting on a show that Russell
Tom the Bomb.
Right. But Clancy, I believe, was out of the country. I mean, I'd have to read the chapter again, working with another fight. It could have been Emil Griffith or whoever, but it had to be someone big. I guess it would have been Emil Griffith if I had to guess. But what happened while Clancy wasn't around, right before the fight, Bethea shook Peltz down. He's not fighting unless he gets a boost in his pay, extra money. And Peltz gave in. He gave Bethea the money. When Clancy found out about it, he was livid. He says, look, when my fighters get an offer for a fight, I call them into my office and I let them know exactly what they're getting paid. And is that okay with them? And he said to Peltz, you made me really look bad, and I'm not going to help you and bail you out. Normally, Clancy said he'd give Peltz his share to make it up to him. His cut if Peltz was having a hard time on a promotion, but he wasn't going to do it, And Peltz kind of learned this lesson, on that. I'm sure Russell
It's a
would
bit,
at the time.
Jack, we both know it's shark-infested waters. It really is. And money talks. It's like at the end of the day, we can say this, we can say that, but you just never know when somebody's offering you 15 million like Ben, and he's sitting there and he's thinking, Eddie's been good to me, and the history they have, that $15 million is kind of hard to walk away from.
There's something of interest too. Okay, that's maybe going on behind the scenes that no one has mentioned in the media. The guy who's handling, either he's the manager or chief advisor for Ben, is Keith Connolly. Okay, and Keith Connolly also is the manager, chief advisor. I don't know what the paperwork is, of Richardson Hitchens, who was supposed to be on the Garcia show but got sick. But that's another issue. I'm not questioning whether he was sick or not. But
Right.
Hitchinson had fought for matchroom boxing for Eddie Hearn, and Keith Connolly supposedly and Eddie Hearn, something went down between them. Something went down, and Hitchinson wasn't being used for matchroom for a while, and
Right.
and now you kind of wonder, the dynamics behind the scenes. Sometimes we're not told, and again, I'm not passing judgment who's right or wrong. And Hearn's not naive. How can he not have a contract? I mean, thinking, oh, he's much different. How different can
Right.
Conor be? Conor Ben was busted for substance abuse. He denied it like all fighters deny it. When has anyone ever admitted to being on steroids, any substance abuse? Yeah,
I can't think of anybody that, or they say I took it accidentally or it was in a supplement. Yeah, they don't come clean with it.
yeah.
Look, Jack, fighters lie. That's not news.
There was one Olympian, a woman in track and field a few years ago. She admitted she was depressed, took something. But, I'd nearly reduced the fighter's suspension if they admitted it. If a fighter said to me, yeah, I think other people take it. I'm trying to, get an edge. I thought I could get away with it. I got caught. I got to face the consequences.
So in other words, do it and deny it and face the consequences.
If it was normally a 2-year suspension, I would cut it to a year automatically with that honesty. I'd say, look, don't do this again. I'm cutting it in half the penalty, but it's what it is.
As you were speaking, I went on to see the lineup of fights coming up to see if there was anything juicy we could talk about. And there really isn't that much. And I was sitting here thinking, okay, now Mayweather's back. And now he is going to flood all the sites. And he's going to give us something to talk about. It may not be substantive, but because he's back in the mix, Jack, and because, again, he has a black belt at doing these things, he will be throwing things out there and throwing all kind of things out. I'm going to fight for 10 more years. Terrence Crawford isn't off my list. You'll see.
But you want to know something? Assuming this is a real fight and they can't sell it as an exhibition, that it's a real fight, that Mayweather's unbeaten record is at risk. Mayweather.
That's the key. That's the selling point. That's the hook.
Mayweather's earned the right to have the headlines, be the big star again. He's taking a risk. He is taking a risk because he's 49 years old. You're caught up. Well, he's picking his spots. Yeah, of course he's picking his spots.
He's done that since 2007. Why would it change now?
This is a losable fight against Pacquiao. It's absolutely a risky fight. That's the thing about it. You don't think Pacquiao's going to be in the best possible form? He is for this fight.
He is. Of course he is.
It's a losable fight. It's even a draw tarnishes Mayweather to a large extent.
Pacquiao to get a decision, Jack's going to have to beat him to death, and he's not capable of doing that.
But you're questioning the integrity of the judges. Where's the fight taking place, Frank? Did they announce a venue? Is it Vegas?
A new venue in Vegas, I think. I forget the name of it.
Which kind of helps Mayweather because he lives in Vegas. So he's not going to have to check in the hotel and all, and he's training in
Go ahead,
Vegas.
Jack. I'm on the article now. It will be at the Spear venue in Vegas.
Yeah, but if you look at the fights that have took place this weekend and are coming up, There are very few appealing matchups, Frank, in boxing. It's unfortunate. We have David Benavidez and Zerto Ramirez. It's a solid fight, but does anyone expect Benavidez to lose?
No.
Not really, but Ramirez is good enough where you have to give him at least a slim chance of upsetting Benavidez. He can cash in. If Benavidez has a bad night, this is how I like to talk about it. Ramirez can cash in. Put it that way, okay?
Benavidez has to have a real bad night.
But Ramirez is good enough if he has a great night and Benavidez has an off night. Yeah, Ramirez has a genuine chance of winning that fight.
Okay, so that's decent, Jack. But think about this. So we're saying there are not many good matchups, and the platforms to see them are brutal. What a recipe for a sport.
It's all on the zone. We can't see the fights, Frank. Either I'm going to have to give in and pay my 500, and after tax, it'll be about 575. It'll be close to 600. It's going to cost me close to 600, and I'm going to get all these fights on the zone. But look, what am I getting? I'm getting Wilder and Chisora. It sounds good on the surface. Oh, what a good fight. But Deontay Wilder's a shot fighter. He got knocked out by Zhang in, 4 rounds, and Zhang dominated him. Joseph Parker beat Wilder big. He beat him big.
From pillar to post for 12 rounds.
Chisora, he's a warhorse. Tremendous respect. He could still fight a little bit. I'll give him his due. He beat Otto Wallen. He has the heart of a lion, but Chisora's like driving a car that's 17, 18 years old. It'll get you places, but you better get it in the shop.
So, Jack, $600 for the zone, and you still have to pay for pay-per-views.
No. You'll get their pay. Well, no.
If you get that package, you get every fight, no matter how big.
There's an asterisk. You'll get their pay-per-views like Garcia and Barrios, Wilder Chisora's pay-per-view, and they offered you one pay-per-view show a month, okay? But they're not genuine pay-per-view shows. But I'm going to tell you this: if they had a true mega fight, the zone, that would be
Extra.
fun. Shakur Stevenson against Ryan Garcia, a high-profile fight, because
Right. Or Ortiz and Boots.
no, Ortiz and Boots will be part of the package, because all Ortiz and Boots are fighters. They're not personalities. Well, maybe they'll be personalities someday.
Okay.
Okay, but the mega of the big name events, they're going to charge an extra amount for pay-per-view, because they're going to say, well, we're giving you the one pay-per-view a month, but we're adding an extra. And that's not my idea of pay-per-view. Garcia Barrios pay-per-view, Wilder Chisora pay-per-view, but that's what it is. But occasionally they will give you a genuine pay-per-view main event like Ortiz and Boots. That's a genuine pay-per-view event, as long as they give you a halfway decent undercut. Let me throw this at you. Let's say Ortiz and Boots, if they do find April, the way we hear it's been announced that they're very close to that. If they give you a lousy undercard, terrible undercard, is it worth still getting the show to you because of that main event?
You know what, Jack? For that fight, I would. And my mindset would be, I'm paying to see Ortiz and Boots fight. They could charge me. This is how bad I am, Jack. If they charged me $99 and all I got were Ortiz and Boots, I would still buy it, because I want to see that fight. That's me. I want to see that fight.
Yeah, like even yesterday, it wasn't pay-per-view. They have two packages. You can spend something like $275 after tax, but you don't see the pay-per-view fights that the zone comes up with. You see all the other fights. For example, this past weekend, Lee Wood won a wide decision over Josh Warrington. That would be in the cheaper package of fights you could see. And also this weekend, Clarissa Shields won a lopsided decision, and actually a good action fight. What's her name? Cruz. Oh my, I'm having a little moment where I forgot the last name. Established female fighter who fought Clarissa Shields before, and I kind of wanted to get that show because on the undercard was Price Taylor, the heavyweight we had on our show.
And he won.
He went to 11-0, fifth round stoppage. And one of the highlights to me, Frank, since you and I have been doing this show, how many years have we done this show? 4 or 5 years?
Roughly, I think we started right on the 50th, right after the 50th anniversary of Ali Frazier. So that would have been 2001.
Yeah.
So say September 2001 or 2021.
One of my favorite moments was when Price seemed to be lecturing you, telling you more or less he doesn't need road work, and explaining move his legs and how he would beat Usyk, how he would handle him. And you're like sitting there politely, but I know what you're thinking, you know. And he's explaining he'll beat Usyk without any road work.
You know, I saw a comment on that fight though, Jack, where somebody said they actually want to see. They thought enough of Taylor that they would like to see him fight Moses Itama. They thought that much of him.
I'm going to tell you, Taylor has talent. He's coming along, and but what does Itama have to gain being Price Taylor right now? I mean, and I'm not. I would pick Itama to win that fight. Don't get me wrong, but with Taylor, he could provide a little more of a risk than a veteran fighter.
I'll give you a better fight, Jack. How about Richard Torres versus Taylor?
Well, Richard Torres is fighting Frank Sanchez.
Frank Sanchez, right? When is that? That in March?
Yeah, that's on the undercard, I think. Is it on the undercard of Fondura Thurman? I believe it is, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken by saying that. And that's, but that's a good fight. That's Richard.
I'm looking for it. I'm actually thinking I'm going to pick Torres to win that fight.
And Sanchez is a capable heavyweight. He's
absolutely.
Capable. And
older though, a little bit long in the tooth, can be outworked, I think, by a guy like Torres.
Yeah, the problem with fighters like Price Taylor, to give them a shot, like in the case of Otama, you don't know how much Taylor could actually improve going forward. Fighters like Richard Torres, you know they're as good as they're ever going to be at this stage. And basically same with Frank Sanchez. But certain fighters there might be room for improvement more than you realize. You know,
I'll say this about Richard Torres, Jack. Do I think he's limited? Yes, I do. But I like, much more than Taylor, I like his attitude. I like his work ethic. And today, if you have a heavyweight who is a little bit better than capable, and he's dedicated, and he's in great shape, and he knows what's important, that will take him really far in this shallow pool.
Yeah, I agree. But there are enough veteran heavyweights out there that someone like Otama can fight. I mean, Andy Ruiz supposedly signing with Zuffa Boxing. I have no interest in seeing Andy Ruiz.
Boy, talk about the guy that blew his career.
Yeah, well, he's back, but that's what's wrong with boxing. The guy can win one fight, and he's given a gold card that he could play.
Especially at heavyweight.
10 years. He doesn't have to fight for 3 years. He comes back, and then his name's all over the news, and people want to see him. It makes no sense at all. Yeah.
That's why Floyd will stimulate interest again, Jack.
Floyd is an all-time great fighter. That's the thing about it. That's the difference. Andy Ruiz is entitled to nothing. Wait, is this thing on? Listen, Floyd losing is not an option. Well, I didn't see the rest of the remark went off.
TBE money team all the way.
Yeah, well, listen, you could believe that Floyd still has greatness. I don't. Believe me, I don't.
Hey, Jack, Alex thinks that Alex is a big fan of Floyd. Obviously, Alex, can you hear me? Just remember this much, Alex. Prime for prime, Terrence Crawford would have dismantled Floyd. Better fighter, better career. Just didn't make as much money. I want to see Alex retort that.
I don't agree the dismantling part because
Dismantle him.
when you talk about Mayweather, you're talking about one of the greatest defensive fighters in boxing history. So Floyd is going to give anyone problems based on how great he is defensively. Okay?
Maidana hit him. Corrales hit him. Judah hit him. Mosley hit him. If those guys can find him, Jack, Crawford can beat him up. In that matchup, and my man D-Mez and I went at it a little bit on YouTube because he disagrees with me about Holmes and Frazier. But Mayweather does the only thing Mayweather you can say does better than Crawford is he doesn't get hit, but at the sacrifice of his offense. Crawford has an answer to everything. He's the stronger guy. He's more durable. He hits harder. He's meaner. He's every bit as fast. That's one of those fights, Jack, I bet my life on.
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
I'm that sure. There are a few fights in my book I'm that sure of. Tua knocks out Tyson. Frazier beats Holmes prime for prime. Crawford beats Floyd prime for prime.
Okay, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened.
And Lyle beats Norton.
Well, I mean, we'll never know on those things whether they would happen or not. But
right.
Well, you've always kind of taken Floyd lightly. You figured Sugar Ray Leonard would have overwhelmed Floyd and beaten him big.
Sugar Ray Leonard's an all-time great, Jack. Is that slighting Floyd? He was number 2 in Eyebrow all-time welterweight. I don't think that's picking on Floyd to say Leonard beats him.
You gave Floyd no shot against Tommy Hearns. You called it a virtual mismatch. You didn't use those words, but that's what you were inferring in the past. There's no possible way it could have beaten
I don't see no way for Floyd to win. None.
Yeah, I mean, it's so what level? Okay, I mean, listen, you might be right on all that. I mean, but we're never going to know. So, but
but Jack, the funny part is, and the sad part is, and we discussed this last week. When you talk about boxing today, it's the most fun we have now are talking about hypothetical matchups that could never happen because there's none going on today. I did a post today about Marciano, the picture. You saw the picture with Marciano, Ali, and Lewis. And back when that picture was taken, the debate was who was the great. They were the 3 greatest: Lewis, Marciano, and Ali. Today, Lewis and Ali are still in the conversation. Marciano's dropped off, and my point was I don't think Rocky beats everybody after Ali, but you know what? Most of the guys, he gives a hell of a run for their money, and he's capable of beating some of them.
Yeah, I agree. Legacy's a funny thing because we never know how it's going to play out. Fighter's legacy. Case in point, Lennox Lewis. Right after he retired, he didn't have that great of a legacy. Now Lennox has an excellent legacy, tremendous legacy. People do consider him, one of the all-time greats. They don't
absolutely, and rightfully so. He is. Jack, I remember when he got knocked out by Oliver McCall. If you would have called me Sunday morning and said, by the way, Frank, I think that Lennox Lewis is going to retire, one of the all-time greats, I would say you're out of your mind.
Alex has a point, though. Alex
has no point. There's no reason why Crawford would fight Ez. It's just an excuse for Alex to rip Crawford. He had nothing to gain by him.
Crawford is one of my favorites. Okay, I wrote a big story.
I love Boots, Jack.
I wrote a big story on Crawford in Boxing News Monthly. The day it hit print, he retired, and I put a plan in place. I told you how Crawford could turn out to be considered the greatest fight of all time. It was 9 fights.
Yeah, and you had him fighting 11 times.
9 times, as I remember, over the next, let's say, whatever. But Okay, it's what is, but Boots Ennis was on that list at some point.
And Jack, Alex is wrong because Crawford did offer Ennis family that fight, and at the end of the day, they turned it down. They didn't want Crawford, and I'm the biggest Boots Ennis fan out there. I think he will be the next Terrence Crawford, but he is not Terrence Crawford, and he has a long way to go. But I would pick him to beat everybody else out there. In fact, I would go this far: I would take Boots Ennis of today to beat every welterweight Mayweather ever fought. Give me a welterweight he wouldn't have defeated.
Well, how about Oscar De La Hoya?
Boots would beat the hell out of De La Hoya.
You sell De La Hoya short.
No, I don't, Jack. But De La Hoya struggled against everybody good that he fought. Give me the big names he fought where he looked great. Vargas, one time.
Yeah, but De La Hoya, give him credit. He always challenged himself against the best
I will give him credit for that. You're right. I just think Boots is a better fighter.
Oscar criticized
More gifted, at least. We have to see. History will tell us if he's better. He's more gifted, and I just think all he brings to the ring, he would beat him.
But for all of Oscar's faults, we got to give him his due. He backed up what he's saying now as a promoter.
And he fought all those guys in their prime, Jack.
He fought Iquarte in his prime. He fought Mosley.
Trinidad in his prime. Mosley in his prime. Absolutely.
When you think of it, how many fighters have fought the amount of fighters in their prime the last 40 years, let's say, that they
Oscar's on that list, Jack. The only thing is he never really separated himself from those guys. He was in the mix and won a few more times than he lost. But yes, tough guy, could do everything. I just think Boots would beat him.
They were all close fights, though. All very close fights. Him and Iquarte, close fights. The loss, the Mosley first fight was close. I thought Shane deserved it. Second fight was controversial. You know, and Trinidad, he fought in his prime. Most people think Oscar should have gotten the decision.
And he was only a point away or two from beating Mayweather.
Right, exactly. And that was Oscar past his peak. And that's a red flag on Mayweather that doesn't make him look so good, because you kind of wonder, had he met a peak De La Hoya and they fought best 3 out of 5, you know, Mayweather's not winning 3-0. You know, he
Jack,
might be.
Floyd Mayweather fought one fighter undefeated in their prime. That was Diego Corrales. I'm not sure. I think he was a very slight favorite in that fight, and Floyd looked great. Every other name opponent he fought, there is a question mark next to it by me, because they were coming off. I mean, Pacquiao had been knocked out by Marquez 3 years before they fought. Mosley was basically shot when they fought. And Canelo, he made come in at 152 way before he was in his prime, where at least Crawford, maybe he didn't beat a peak Canelo, but he beat him at his best weight, moving up 3 weight classes.
Yeah, and even when Mayweather beat Judah was coming off a loss to Carlos Baldomir, you know, as well. So, yeah,
And Judah knocked him down and never got credit for it.
You know, Judah got off to a good start in that fight. He was up 3 rounds to 1, and he knocked Mayweather down. Had they scored the knockdown the way they should have, he would have been up 3 points with 8 rounds to go. So you do the math. Mayweather would have had to, and he did. He would have had to win.
And think about this, Jack. If Judah could do that to Crawford, to Mayweather, what would put Crawford there? He's twice the fighter that Judah is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I would have bet against Crawford. I'm not saying that at all. But Mayweather was so good defensively that no one takes him apart. He's not going to be hit with any consistency no matter who he fights. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Jack, and that's a valid point. I just think Crawford brings an offense and a style to the ring that would be much more troubling for Mayweather than the problems that Mayweather would present Crawford. That's my opinion. I can make the case. I can never prove it.
Yeah, I see a point. But, you know, wrapping up the show, basically we're waiting for Boots and Virgil Ortiz as the next really big fight we look forward to, because we didn't talk about it. We don't look at Sebastian Fundora or Keith Thurman as a big fight. We just
It'll be
don't.
something to talk about when the time comes around. But Jack, mark my words, Mayweather's name, now that he's back in the mix, we will touch on him probably every show from now until the fight.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. We've done in the past.
He'll give us content, and that's good. That's like Ali. He gives you content.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Frank, a lot of fun. See you next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.